Welcome to another episode of Eye on the Issues, talking about what's happening around the state of Wyoming right now. We are going to talk to a former juvenile detention deputy from Laramie County, Dana Kennison. Dana, let's begin by talking about what was it like being a juvenile detention deputy?
Well, it's very actually rewarding. A lot of kids that had never been in that facility or that setting really got to spend a lot of time with these new kids coming in, and with their, most of the time they had no discipline. So this is their first experience with a person of my caliber of disciplining them.
And are we talking about kids of all ages, from 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or probably mostly teens? But what ages are we talking about?
Mostly teens, 12 to 17. As soon as they turn 18, they go to the adult facility.
Okay, and these kids, were they mostly brought in for drugs, or what type of crimes are we talking about here?
We're talking about anywhere from stealing, just typical juvenile behavior, staying out past curfew, smoking cigarettes, doing marijuana. I would say that's probably about it.
Yeah, and did you see any kind of trend with kids, for example, maybe doing marijuana with their parents or parental consent, as opposed to just experimenting with friends?
Well, some of these kids, actually, most of these kids that come into the juvenile facility, their parents, one way or another, are affiliated with the sheriff's department. They have spent some time downtown in the adult facilities. So basically, the trend is, and that what I've seen over my experience is, a young teen coming in usually is affiliated with a sheriff one way or another.
And do you think the system is actually set up to help kids and keep them from becoming, repeat offenders, or is it not?
Well, I would say a half and half. Most of these kids that come in, usually, what I've seen, if you get a new kid in, and they've don't have that parent in the system, usually they don't come back. It was a one-time offense, and mostly a kid like that is, broke curfew. Basically, mom called the cops. They bring them in, and basically they'll spend the night with us, or maybe 2 days before they go to court, get a citation, and then usually you don't see those kinds of kids again. Usually it's the kids that have parents in the system. And usually those parents are repeat offenders. And I say repeat, they've been in that system, in my experience, I've probably come across them maybe 5 or 6 times. So dealing with their kid, I already know kind of the mentality that they're coming in. And usually the court system is set up to help the kids, but being that some of these judges have, I want to say, their hand in the rehabilitation centers. So usually it's a revolving door that I've seen.
Wow. And the kids that come in that are probably not just related, that don't have parents involved in the system already, they have a certain kind of attitude about them. The ones that are repeat offenders, can you kind of tell that this is something that they're not completely, they're kind of used to coming into a situation like this, and they're used to doing things that are not good?
I would say those kinds of kids usually come in with exactly like the parent. They come in with the attitude like they've been here before, and it's very, I don't know, but I don't want to say it's funny, because going through a system like this is not a funny manner. And usually when they encounter me, I usually give them the right act and tell them, this ain't no joke, man. By the time you stand in front of the judge is not going to think it's a joke either. So their attitudes are like, my parents taught me how to do this, so it shouldn't be a problem.
So, as an outsider looking in on these kids and the problems they've gone through, what was the hardest thing for you as a law enforcement officer to sit there and watch? Was it kind of tough to watch these kids? They're on a really bad path already.
Well, I'm a father of three, so the hardest part is um, it's the age for me that once they get in the cycle, it's very hard to get them out, especially when the parents involved. And like I said, parents that have been in the system have trained these kids how to try to work the system from the inside. And when they come in with that attitude, it's really, really hard as a deputy to try to groom them to be a better citizen, because they've already been ingrained, many years before they got to me.
And in respect to the court system in Wyoming, would you call it, or in Laramie County, would you call it lenient on first-time offenders, or did they crack the whip right away?
No, my experience is it's very lenient. Usually like the first offense, is usually just a fine or some kind of probationary period, which could go from anywhere from 3 to 6 months. I've never, in my experience, I've never seen anybody be on probation longer than for first time offense longer than 6 months.
In respect to, go ahead.
So what happens is they think, okay, I can buy my time here and do the 6 months. And then once that 6 months done, they go out and do it again.
Now, in respect to marijuana users being brought in there, obviously marijuana is still illegal in the state of Wyoming, not in Colorado. It's legal in Colorado, not in Wyoming. Were you seeing more and more kids brought in there as a result of drug use like marijuana?
Yes, marijuana in young kids is usually their first experience dealing with drugs, and my experience is that that's the first gateway to cocaine, heroin, and meth. So, and marijuana it's easy to get. It's easy for them to go down Colorado, pick it up, do it with their parents down there, and then come back and have some on them. So when they get caught, it's very easy. Deputies know what they're doing. We know when a kid's using marijuana.
Do you think having, I'm not sure how the ratio of deputies versus offenders that are behind bars is. Would it be helpful, in your opinion, to have more deputies there trying to talk to these kids, watch the kids that are there?
Well, we could take a little step back here. The juvenile facility that we have here in Laramie County, it's one deputy per 8 kids. So the facility set up, there's 2 houses, which 8 kids in each house, that's 16. And then we have a crisis center for, mom and dad passed away and the kids got to go somewhere. So when I was there, the crisis center was not open, so we didn't facilitate that. But by the time I had resigned and moved on to other greener pastures, we had both houses full. So one deputy per 8 kids. I would say that's very manageable at the time. But the uptick at the time when I was leaving, when I started there, they we'd have 2 or 3 kids in each house. But by the time by the time I left, we had 8 kids per house. So, and I was still friends with some of the deputies that still work there. And from that moment I left, those houses never got empty.
Wow. So let me ask you this. Now, given Cheyenne just attempted to, as you probably know, decriminalize marijuana to relieve the so-called, I guess, wasteful burdens on the justice system, do you think if it did go through, that would have helped, or do you think it would have hurt and expanded the use of the drugs?
I would have with my own personal belief, I would have thought it would put a strain on the system. Especially, it's one of those things, as soon as you decriminalize something like that, those that hit it and stayed home and stayed out of trouble, they're probably going to be doing it out in public.
And what's your take on the fact that the marijuana that's out there today is so much more potent than the marijuana of 30 years ago? I mean, it's got to be a whole different ballgame.
Well, I would say the marijuana today is at a lot stronger than it was years ago. Not only that, the way they're providing it, gummies, brownies, they can get it in a lot of different ways now. So it's easier to get.
Mm-hmm. And statewide, obviously, as we mentioned already, marijuana is still not legalized in the state of Wyoming. As a former law enforcement officer, I'm sure a proud Wyoming person. What do you say about that? You want to see it still remain not legal there in the state, whether it be recreational or medicinal for that matter?
Well, marijuana is still a tier 1 drug, so it's still in the category heroin, meth, cocaine. So just for future, grandkids that I'll have here in the future, I still believe that it should stay a tier 1. I'm positive. I don't want to be out in public watching these people smoke pot. It's unacceptable to me and most of my family, and I've got a lot of friends in the sheriff's department that still believe that too.
State by state, obviously they're legalizing it, not everywhere, but some places, obviously many places for that matter. But nationally, this has also come up recently, and there are clearly some lawmakers traditionally on the left side of the aisle that would like to legalize marijuana nationally. What goes through your mind when you hear the fact that our lawmakers on a national level are talking like that?
Well, it tells me they just don't want to deal with the bureaucracy of it anymore. They want it to be done. They want to lay it to bed. And the thing is they probably got family members that are doing it, and they want to pave the way for them.
Yeah. Well, okay. I appreciate your time, Dana. Let me ask you one last thing. Is there anything about the legal system or just in general that you would like to share that I have not asked you about that you think people would like to know?
Just one thing, as far as like the juvenile services side of it, when these kids come to us, it's not like a jail. It really isn't. It's set up more like a school for them. So if you give these kids an opportunity to go to school than go to jail, they'd rather much go to school. I was with these kids most of the time. I close proximity, dealing with them and listening to them, what their problems are and stuff like that, just like a teacher or a psychologist.
Counselor.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, a counselor. That's what I was. I was a counselor to these kids. So I got the opportunity to tell them life experiences, and most of the kids, they did listen, and most of them didn't come back. But we'll go back to kids with parents in the system. They 99.9% they came back. So the system is set up to basically encourage them to come back.
So if you could change one thing about the system, what would it be?
I would say when I was there, I was very strict, and that's what they need. They need a strict disciplinary figure in that system. You can't be lenient on these kids, because especially a first-time offender, you don't want them to come back. And if you can lay down the law, even in that kind of structure, 9 times out of 10, they don't want to come back and deal with me.
Sure. All right. Last question. What do you like most about living in Wyoming?
The mo I would say the cool weather. I don't like the hot so much. So, 8 or 9 months out of the year, it's pretty cool here.
Yeah, I would say that. And this winter, you got a ton of snow, I would believe, this past winter, didn't you?
Yeah, we got a lot of snow this year.
Yeah. Okay. Dana Kennison, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining us for Eye on the Issues.
Hey, you're welcome. Thank you, Mike.